Well, thank you for inviting me here. It's really an honor to speak here, and it's inspiring to listen to those before me with much greater experience and longer experience than I do. So Atmonia is an early stage technology company. We're developing a sustainable process for ammonia production via electrochemistry. Our process will be containerized, operating at room temperature and pressure. So that means that it can be operating on an intermittent fashion, working perfectly with the future of electricity production, which is renewable electricity. And renewable electricity is, in its essence, at least for solar and wind, which is in most places except for Iceland, where we are lucky enough to have hydro and geothermal, it's fluctuating. So that's why chemical processes also need to become fluctuating. This way, with sustainable ammonia, the demand for sustainable ammonium or for ammonia will increase from the 240 million tons per year today, which is mainly used for fertilizer, to 600 million tons because of the move for use of ammonium as e-fuel as well. Our containers will have low capex and will be able to save more than 3% of global anthropogenic emissions of CO2 using energy that's otherwise curtailed. We do define the state of the art with our system, but I'm not going deeply into that. But the greatest part of what I will be dwelling on here is the patents. We do have 3 patents accepted and 3 patents that are ongoing now, filed last year, and 2 more that we've actually filed and then cancelled. And none of this would happen without the support of both Ranni's Tækniþróunarsjóður and then Horizon Europe, which is really like an important structure and cornerstone for R&D and innovation in Iceland. So that's really important for us. So where are we? We started in 2012. This doesn't really fit into the timeline. Egill Skúlason started working at the University of Iceland, and he had this idea of studying theoretical simulations, studying the surface catalysts for nitrogen reduction reaction. In 2014, we filed the first patent, transitional methyl nitrides as catalyst for nitrogen reduction reaction. In 2016, we founded Atmonia. So this patent, this first one, was actually filed by the University of Iceland. This is we work really collaboratively and strongly with the University of Iceland, and a lot of the work that we do is, a lot of the patents are filed by work that PhD students at the university are actually doing. Second patent, also filed by the University of Iceland, transition metal oxides. Third patent, filed by Atmonia, transition metal sulfides, and then a fourth that we then cancelled 1.5 years later. Fifth, it's been cancelled. In 2022, we finally made a demonstration of our concept. We demonstrated that we could, in fact, use some of our catalysts for the production of ammonium from nitrogen from air. And then we made an exclusivity agreement with SABIC. And last year, we filed 3 more patents, performed our first scale up from like 2 square centimeters to 5 square centimeters. So our cell is like this big. And we have yet a few years to go before we actually enter market. And in the meantime, we anticipate to be filing much more patents as well. But this talk here is mainly about like, what are we doing and why are we filing patents? We usually start by, so we can see that for the nitrogen reduction reaction for ammonium production and industrial production of ammonium, patents for the catalyst really give you the key to securing the market for a longer timeline. And this is very important because when you find a catalyst, that catalyst might not be changed for 100 years. Happy Bosch, the process that's currently being used for the production of ammonium, was developed in 1913. We're still using that. So we need to really maintain and ensure our market for scale up, because developing our catalyst is expensive, and then getting to market and ensuring that market to actually pay off the cost of the development is important, and that's the only way really to get investors to join in. We do define the idea. The idea often comes from just when we the simulations, and we work on simulations at the University of Iceland. Then when we have the idea and we've demonstrated something interesting, we have a collaborative search with the Nordic Patent Institute. Then after that, we advise with patent lawyers, and we've been lucky enough to work with Árnason Factor on that since the very beginning of Atmonia, and earlier than that. And of course, the University of Iceland is always a part of this, and there's always just a negotiation, like who owns what, where do we go, what are we doing, where does this invention come from? And that's a very important part of writing up the patent then finally and filing it. And because we work so strongly with the University of Iceland, the next step after filing a patent for us has always been to publish a scientific article. And often the push for filing a patent in order to actually create a value out of the work that we're doing is that we have PhD students that really need to publish their work. So we have, in order to protect their work before they publish it, we file the patents. And following that, we actually run experimental simulation, experimental verification. And that's mainly been my job. And the job of Atmonia and our Atmonia team. We've been because the patents that we file are most commonly based on results in theoretical simulations. What we need to do after that is to take those results and bring them to life. We need to produce the catalysts. Those catalysts, this is not a high resolution figure, but they are usually surfaces that we then put on. This is the most simplified version of our cell. It doesn't really look like this, but it's a nice way to demonstrate it, that we have two electrodes, very similar to hydrogen production through electrolysis, but on the electrode where hydrogen should be produced, we actually coat it with our catalyst, and our catalyst selectively produces ammonium rather than producing hydrogen. This way we can bypass hydrogen production, and we can produce ammonium at room temperature and pressure with only applying a potential. And this is the key to being able to produce ammonium in a versatile, small scale and distributed manner where we can turn it on and off as we will. And that is the only way to use it with the future of sustainable electricity. We still have a couple of years to market, but when we enter market, we know that our product, when used, if used globally, of course, we'll start with some niche markets, but we can, when all fertilizer production is replaced with sustainable ammonium production, such as ours, we can avoid 400 million ton emissions of CO2 every year. And then global maritime transportation emits more than 1,000 million tons of CO2 every year. And this is what we'd like to replace. None of this can be done in a vacuum. What we do is only possible because we have an ecosystem where we are able to thrive. We have been lucky enough to have a really strong collaboration, of course, with the University of Iceland. We have received funding from Brani's Technology Development Fund and Horizon Europe. And then we have strong collaboration with a lot of other institutes, universities, companies, startups, and then larger companies as well that have demonstrated interest in what we're doing and really would like to participate in that or bring in knowledge and experience and technology and infrastructure that we otherwise would not be able to actually fund or perform by ourselves. So that's one of the messages. And that's also why many of the patents that we own with the University of Iceland, or the latest one we actually own with Fujitsu, because we had a collaborative project with Fujitsu for the last 2 years, and one of the results of that collaborative project has been a patent. But it's better to own 10% of a multi-million company than 100% of nothing. And that's where we are. So thank you.